The NFL draft is over, and we have 3 more picks to talk about. That and more on today's episode of Locked On Bucs.
You are Locked On Buccaneers, your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, and welcome into this Monday episode of Locked On Bucs, your daily podcast covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank you for making Locked On Bucs your first listen review every single day. Don't forget you can subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And, of course, you can follow along on Twitter. I am James Yarcho at JYarcho_Bucs. Credentialed member of the media covering your Tampa Bay Buccaneers as deputy editor of SB Nation's BucsNation.com. Here with you every Monday through Friday along with the everydayers. And for that, I want to share my appreciation for your continued support of the show. One of the ways you can support the show is become a Locked On Bucs insider. You're going to get news, rumors, updates, general thoughts, plus one-on-one conversations with me via text message. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucs to become an insider today. This episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I admit it, I have a competitive side, and it is a big fan of Monopoly Go, the mobile hit twist on the classic Monopoly game. So join your friends and download Monopoly Go, now free on the App Store or Google Play. Updating the Buccaneers depth chart after the NFL draft coming up in a little bit. But let's start by talking about the 3 picks that the Bucs had on Saturday that we have not addressed yet. So at pick 125 in the 4th round, the Buccaneers did indeed go running back, but it wasn't one of the ones that I thought it would be. Jalen Wright had just gone off the board, and as much as I wanted Audric Estime, I thought for sure the pick was going to be Kentucky's Ray Davis. Instead, the Bucs went with Oregon running back Bucky Irving to join Rachaad White and Chase Edmonds in the backfield. Irving is 5'10", 195. He finished 2023 with 186 carries for 1,180 yards and 11 touchdowns overall in college between 1 year with the Minnesota Golden Gophers and 2 years with the Oregon Ducks. Irving had 475 carries for 2,937 yards and 20 touchdowns, averaging 6.2 yards per carry, while also adding 95 receptions for 785 yards and 5 more touchdowns. He's not blazing fast. He ran just a 4.55 40, but he's one of the more elusive backs in this draft class. He slips tackles effortlessly and rarely goes down to the first guy that gets to him. So he's really quick on his feet with that change of direction. It's immediate. As soon as he decides he's going to make a cut, he's already completely avoided the opposing defender. It's completely effortless. I really like a lot of what I've seen from Irving so far, but I haven't gone into a full dive quite yet. That said, I didn't love the pick. I like it, and I think that Irving adds a playmaker in both the run and the pass game, but you all know what I've said over the course of the last 2 months. The Bucs needed to add a running back that brought something that they didn't already have. Primarily, they needed a power guy for those 3rd or 4th and shorts, those goal line situations. Irving does not fit that bill. He doesn't bring that size or that strength at all. So your short yardage back is still going to be Rachaad White. You're likely going to have the same problems as last season, though I will say with a revamped offensive line, they might be able to get enough push at the line of scrimmage and clear a bigger path for Rachaad to get that yard or 2 that he couldn't get last season. But again, I'm not bashing the pick. Don't hear what I'm not saying. Irving is going to bring a reliability to the rotation, and he's likely going to surpass Edmonds sooner than later as the RB2 behind Rachaad White. One of his best traits is ball protection. He fumbled 1 time in his entire collegiate career. So this is a player that isn't going to get stripped. He's not going to get peanut punched often, if at all. So I like the quickness. I like the decisiveness. I like the production. I just don't like the size, and that's the biggest knock that I have on him so far. But as I said, I'll be going through games for the players that the Buccaneers drafted, probably those first 5 picks. I'm not going to go into the 2 guys that I'm getting ready to talk about next, at least not to the level that I do with those first 5 picks, because those are going to be the biggest impact guys right out of the gate. So as I go player by player, I will get to Bucky Irving, and I will be able to tell you what I see from him, how it translates to the Bucs, and I'm excited to get into Irving's film and see if he changes my mind at all. Really watching him, not just a highlight package put together on YouTube. Everybody's highlights look good. I want to see down to down, what does this running back bring to the Buccaneers? But obviously the Bucs saw more than enough to take him over some of the other running backs that were still available. I believe, if memory serves correctly, I should have looked it up. I think Bucky Irving was the 4th, maybe 5th running back taken off the board. He brings plenty to the Bucs, but like I've said, he doesn't bring what I specifically was looking for. But there's a reason that I'm doing this, and Jason Light and John Spytek are in the war room, selecting these players. They saw enough. Liam Cohen saw enough to say, this is the guy that we need to add to this running back rotation. We need to add this quickness. We need to add that initial burst, those quick steps, that 2 to 3 steps, full speed up the middle to be able to break into the second level and really create plays. So I really like Bucky Irving as a prospect. I like that he's on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm curious to see how they're going to handle these short yardage situations now heading into next season, because Rachaad White wasn't great at it last year. Chase Edmonds is not going to be great at it. And Bucky Irving is smaller than Rachaad White is. I know Rachaad White was excited about the pick on Twitter. He was constantly tweeting out after the Buccaneers were making selections. So he's excited to get Bucky Irving into that room and be able to get to work with him. But this is a guy that, he can catch out of the backfield. He can make guys miss. He's slippery. He even said, I can't remember if it was to the media or on his phone call as he was getting drafted, he said, the first guy is not taking me down. And if you go and you watch at least the highlights, again, I haven't begun my dive into full Oregon games, but if you go and you watch, he is slippery. It's like he dipped his uniform in Crisco and then dares guys to come and get him with a one-arm tackle. He's not going to go down like that. Even though he's smaller, he is strong. He's not, the big power back strong, but he is incredibly strong for his size. Pound for pound, he might be one of the stronger guys on the team now. And a lot of that comes from that lower body strength that he has, as well as the agility that he has in his feet. So really excited to get into Bucky Irving's, games and dive more into the Oregon Ducks. But there are 2 more picks for the Bucs that we need to talk about. That is coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It's playoff time in the NBA and NHL. Baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150, win or lose. You can bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Game Time is now an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even easier and faster. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and the lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. Game Time has some incredible deals for Rays games, as the Mets, Yankees, and Red Sox are all set to come to town soon. But it's not just sports. You can get tickets to concerts, theater, comedy, and any live event you want to go see. I love the view from your seat option, so I know exactly what to expect. With the ability to use Apple Pay, I'm just 2 clicks away from having the tickets right there on my phone. But the biggest thing is the last minute deals, when you can save up to 60% off when you buy last minute for that event that you want to go to. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Thank you again for making Locked On Bucs your first listen review every single day. Every day is make sure you are coming back tomorrow. More to dive into about this draft class. Lots of stuff from Jason Light, from the players, from John Spytek. We're going to start diving into some of that, but wanted to get into an introduction to these players for all of you. In the meantime, are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day and you have to turn down the volume from all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. There was a painfully long wait from the selection of Bucky Irving until the Bucs' next pick, which was number 220, 95 picks in between. But once they finally got there, the Bucs went back to the offensive line with guard Elijah Klein out of UTEP. And I got to admit, Klein was an absolute unknown for me until the pick was made and I started looking into him. Not bad, but kind of what you would expect out of a sixth-round pick. Good size, 6'4", 310, but he's a project. And some of the positives that I've seen about him is his upper body strength, his vision, his length. They are all huge attributes that you want in an interior offensive lineman. But on the flip side, he's really, really stiff. That was one of the biggest knocks on him. And he has a hard time with lateral blocks. He's weak against the bull rush because of that stiffness and the pad level. He comes out of his stance really, really high, and it makes him a little susceptible to the bull rush. And he has a tendency to get up on the balls of his feet, which makes him easy to knock off balance. So a couple of fundamental tweaks to his game. But again, when you're getting into the 5th, 6th, 7th round, you're looking for athletic attributes, you're looking for a foundation, and you're looking to be able to mold these guys into potential contributors. Pro Football Focus did give him a 93.5 pass blocking grade last season. He only allowed 3 pressures in 372 passing snaps. So there is some serious raw talent there, but he is a project, and the Bucs are going to have to work to bring his technique along to get him ready for NFL action. I would say at best, you're looking at a backup for the next few years, which is completely fine. Offensive line depth is never a bad thing, but last year he played 10 games at right guard, 1 at right tackle, 1 at left tackle, so it goes back to having some versatility there. We know Jason Light loves to draft these offensive linemen or sign offensive linemen that have played multiple positions because it does give them some flexibility and versatility as far as their depth is concerned. But, you know, Klein is not going to walk in the door and be your starting left guard. It's just, barring anything crazy, it's really just not going to happen. I'll get more into that coming up in a little bit. But you have to like kind of what you see there, knowing that the issues that he's having. He doesn't have size issues. He doesn't have arm length issues. He has fundamental issues that can be tweaked, worked on, and improved with the right coaching. So I love kind of the block of clay that they drafted there that they can mold and develop into a better offensive lineman. One of the other things that I saw that Klein really excelled in was getting to that second level, getting, up to the linebackers, laying his helmet down and really knocking into some of these guys. And he told the media when he was talking to him afterwards that the Bucs are getting a gritty, nasty guy that loves to just go out there and hit people. again, you're looking for, as Jason Light says, you're looking for somebody that's a 10 on the prick scale when it comes to offensive linemen, or in the Bucs case, that's what they look for in their quarterback. But, it's a fine pick. Again, you're talking about a 6th rounder. So if you hit, that's phenomenal. If he's a career backup, that's about the best that you're looking for in the 6th round. And then finally, in the 7th round at pick 247, the Bucs took yet another Washington Husky tight end, Devin Culp. And I know I said it on Twitter. A lot of you that listen or watch aren't on Twitter, so it needs to be said here. Shout out to Evan Klosky of 10 Tampa Bay, who had Culp as the Buccaneers' 7th round pick in his mock draft on this show 2 weeks ago. Bravo. Well done, sir. I applaud you. Very nicely done. So in 2023, Culp had 16 receptions for 208 yards and 2 touchdowns. Not great numbers, but then you go back and you look at the Washington wide receiver trio, one of the most explosive passing offenses in college football. They were utilizing their wide receivers far more than they were utilizing their tight ends. For his career, he finished with 66 receptions for 711 yards and 4 touchdowns in 32 games played for the Washington Huskies. The Bucs needed another pass-catching tight end, and Culp can certainly fit that, but he's also no slouch in blocking either. So this is a guy that can do both things. He can catch passes, he can block in the run game or in the passing game. But not only that, he's the fastest tight end in the 2024 draft class, ran a 4.47 40 at 6'3", 230 pounds. Yes, the tight end that the Buccaneers drafted in the 7th round has a faster 40 time than the running back that they took in the 4th round, and nearly as fast of a 40 as his teammate in Washington and now his teammate in Tampa, wide receiver Jalen McMillan. On top of that, 78.5-inch wingspan, 35-inch vertical. In the red zone, Culp is going to be a problem for opposing defenses if they want to hyper-focus on Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Cade Otton, Jalen McMillan. Culp is a mismatch nightmare for opposing defenses. Assistant GM John Spytek said that the goal is to get him in space where he will be, quote unquote, an issue. Spytek said, quote, you get him in space running, he's 4.47, and he's a hard tackle for DBs. That's our goal. He's a little bit different than the guys we have in that room right now, so we felt like it was a good ad, end quote. Tight end was a position for that the Buccaneers could have used another player, but it wasn't going to be the end of the world if they didn't draft one. It wasn't going to make or break their draft if they didn't take one. But you go back to what I was talking about leading up to the draft. You get into the 5th, 6th, 7th rounds. You're looking for upside. You're looking for special teams contributions. Culp has a ton of athletic and measurable upside, so it was worth taking a chance on him there. There were only like 10 picks left when the Bucs selected Culp. A lot of people had marked him as a priority undrafted free agent. When you're that late in the draft, you can take one of those priority free agents and just use your pick on them so you don't have to compete with any other teams. You got them. You can bring him into your facility. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But we're talking about nearly the last pick in the NFL draft. So now if Culp can work his way onto the field and take some of the 97% of offensive snaps that Cade Otton had to take last year, it's not only going to help out the team, it's going to help out Cade Otton a lot. It's going to help his longevity. So Otton is still going to be your tight end one, no question about that. But Devin Culp can be a mismatch nightmare. Really think it was a solid pick at number 247 because the upside is just absolutely outstanding. It's never too late for a 2025 mock draft, right? I mean, it is a mock draft Monday. I'm kidding. I'll tell you where the new Bucs pieces fit on the depth chart That is coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs. Guys, I need you all to listen up for this huge announcement. I have been tracking the leaderboards every day, keeping my eye on the scores, putting all of my heart into it, and I'm super pumped to announce I am finally on top. That's right. Obviously, I'm talking about the hit mobile game Monopoly Go. You've probably heard of it. It's been downloaded over 150 million times. It's a great mobile twist on classic Monopoly. You can play anywhere, anytime. You explore hundreds of Monopoly boards from Las Vegas to Camelot to the moon, all while raking in a huge fortune. You charge rent on iconic properties just like classic Monopoly, and you can charge your friends rent on iconic properties or just go after their Monopoly money by pulling bank heists and taking wrecking balls to their landmarks. But my favorite part is the leaderboards, where you can see who's a Monopoly tycoon and who has gone bankrupt. So get yourself on the charts. Download Monopoly Go, now free on the App Store and Google Play. Wrapping things up here on a Monday edition of the Locked On Bucs podcast, and let's go player by player and tell you where they will end up on the depth chart for the start of training camp. I'm not going to be so bold as to predict week one depth charts, but let's talk about who these players are and where they are entering in on the depth chart for training camp. Coming up, you have rookie mini camp, you have OTAs, you have a couple of other camps coming up in May and June for the Buccaneers, but we're talking about training camp. And let's start with the first round pick, Graham Barton. He is your starting center. I think this one is locked in. The question is, what are they going to do at guard? But I guess we're about to see a battle between Bredesen and Opeta. Jason Light said that Hainsey won't be moving to guard. He will remain a center. So unless Barton plays guard, which I highly, highly doubt is happening, you're looking at Hainsey being relegated to the sideline and a battle ensuing for the starting left guard position. Hopefully it works out better than left guard worked last year. Then in the second round, Chris Braswell entering training camp. He's a rotational edge rush guy. I think when things kick off, he's going to be viewed as the backup for Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, and that may quickly change depending on what Bowles wants to do with JTS and how he visualizes using him. But Braswell is going to be a heavy part of the rotation with the rest of those guys at edge rusher, Randy Gregory, Anthony Nelson, Jose Ramirez, the rest of those players. He's probably going to become the starter opposite of Diaby before the halfway point of the season, but we're not talking about that right now. We're talking about training camp. So Braswell, rotational player to start training camp, probably the backup to JTS. Tyke Smith, I think you're looking at your starting nickel corner when camp opens. Christian Izien took exception to that when buddy JC Cornell tweeted it out on Saturday. So Izien isn't going to roll over and lay down, but I think Smith's playmaking ability, his knack for takeaways, and his versatility are going to give him a leg up. I mentioned on the bonus episode, we may see Izien move back to safety as a depth piece, but we also know that Todd Bowles will put a lot of different players out on the field at any given time. We may see 4 or 5 corners on the field at once at some point, but I really think that they took Tyke Smith with the vision of him being their starting slot corner, transitioning from safety. Well, and again, he was listed as a safety. He took more snaps at slot corner at Georgia than he did every other alignment combined. Safety, outside corner, free safety, strong safety, all of that. You combine all of those snaps for Tyke Smith in his time at Georgia, it still doesn't add up to what he did as a slot corner. So I think that was the intention of drafting him. He's going to be their starting nickel corner. Jalen McMillan, their second pick in the third round, he's your wide receiver 3. He's going to bounce between the outside and the slot, but he's going to get a ton of work. He's going to outsnap Devin Tompkins and Trey Palmer and Raheem Jarrett. He's bigger, not quite as fast, but a fantastic route runner, and he always puts himself in a position to win against the defense. It's an easy choice here to go ahead and write him in as wide receiver 3. And again, much like Christian Izien, Devin Tompkins and Trey Palmer are going to fight to try to earn that third wide receiver spot. But again, you go into what the Bucs have on the roster, what Jalen McMillan is going to bring to the team, the draft capital that they use to bring him in. And you go back and you watch some of those Washington games without Jalen McMillan, which, I'm going to get a 2 for when I'm going through these Washington games. I get to watch McMillan and Devin Culp at the same time. But you go back and you watch some of these Washington Husky games from last year when McMillan was out, when he wasn't on the field, it was a different team. That high octane air assault offense that they had didn't work as well without McMillan out there. Yeah, he's only 6'1". He doesn't have, huge breakaway speed. He's not slow, but he's not a burner either. But he is going to be your wide receiver 3 because of all of the intangibles that he brings and the threat that he brings as such a refined route runner at such a young age. It really is impressive what McMillan can do. Moving on to the 4th round, Bucky Irving, I think he's your running back 3. He's going to have to earn that RB2 spot over Chase Edmonds. So he's going to have to show in camp that he's willing to stay in there and pick up those blitzes, which is one of the toughest things. Talking to some of these running backs at the combine and, at training camp, they talk about one of the hardest things to do transitioning from college to the NFL is their pass protection and picking up blitzes, reading them, and getting a helmet on these guys. He's going to have to show in camp that he's willing to stand in there and pick those blitzes up and take that physical punishment. He's going to have to show that he can reliably catch passes out of the backfield and that he can make plays by getting through the line, not going down after the initial contact, being decisive, hitting the holes while they're there, because they're going to close much faster in the NFL than they did in college. And just because he's an RB3 entering training camp doesn't mean that he wouldn't get work if he stays there in the regular season. But I think Bowles and Cohen are really going to put him through the ringer and make him earn that RB2 spot. It's not going to be handed to him. Elijah Klein, he's a backup. He's not competing for a starting job. And unless he really wows the coaches and kind of forces their hand to get him into that competition, he's a versatile backup player at best. In 2024, maybe even practice squad. We'll have to see how he adapts to much bigger, much stronger, much faster defensive players. And then finally, Devin Culp, I think he's your tight end 3. And there's nothing wrong with that, but he's going to be behind both Cade Otton and Payne Durham when training camp starts. For the record, I'm not including Ko Kieft in this. Kieft is a blocking tight end. He has a role. He fulfills that role. Every once in a while, he goes out on a route, and that's fun and exciting, and we all go, oh, Ko Kieft catch, that's awesome. It doesn't happen often enough for him to factor into this because Devin Culp is going to be more of a pass-catching tight end. He's going to get opportunities in certain packages. Most likely it's going to be red zone packages. It's going to be 3 tight end sets, but he's going to be used. And if nothing else, it'll be so that Otton will get fewer snaps, get to actually rest a little bit, and then Durham gets to come on the field. By default, Culp will get kind of the role that Durham had last year, whereas Durham will be able to take some off of Cade Otton's plate. So it's also really likely that Devin Culp is going to get some special teams work as well. But overall, I'm really impressed with what I've seen so far out of this Buccaneers draft class. I know a couple of people were knocking their day 3, said that a couple of these guys were reaches. Again, it's day 3. The entire NFL draft is a gamble. It's a guessing game. And, I said on Twitter that, Jason Light did an absolutely phenomenal job, but that's on paper. These guys have to show up and these guys have to play. So we'll see how this all pans out. I'm going to continue to dive more into this draft class throughout the week and then get to work on that film study and start bringing you what I see from all of these players. I'm going to watch 3 games for each one. And in fact, I'm probably going to jump over to the Pro Football Focus weekly grades. And I'm going to take a look at their highest graded game, a middle game, and then their worst game, because I want to see the range of what they were doing. And I think it's only fair to look at the best and the worst according to some other people that have already watched the film, so that I can get a feel as to what was going wrong, why were they getting beat, or what was going right, and why were they having such a great day. So all of that will be coming up in the coming weeks. If you have any thoughts or questions or anything regarding this draft class, go ahead and send them to the DMs on Twitter at Locked On Bucs. I will get to as many of them as I can. Insiders, of course, shoot me a text message. Let me know what you want to know about this draft class. But overall, I would say that Jason Light did a pretty darn good job. I'm going to talk about some of the things that these prospects said and what Jason Light and John Spytek said about them coming up tomorrow. In the meantime, please check out everything going on over at BucsNation.com. Follow everything on Twitter at Locked On Bucs, at @JYarcho_Bucs. Become a Locked On Bucs insider. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucs and make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Hope you all have an absolutely outstanding day. Stay safe, stay healthy, fire the cannons. I want to thank you so much for joining me right here on Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.